Tsundoku, noun. Language of origin, Japanese. Meaning, the act of acquiring books but allowing them to pile up unread.
Ghouls, ghosts, goblins, and gargoyles. These are all villains that the valiant knight Arthur faced off against in the legendary platformer franchise from Capcom in the 1980s. Turn the clock forward to the 2010s, and you'll have the Spanish and European myths and monsters terrorizing Castilla during the Middle Ages. My name is Chad Bonnet, and this is D-Pads and DLC, a look at retro and retro-inspired games. What took major developers in the 1980s can now be done by one developer in the modern era. Let's turn the Tsundoku Zone back 1,000 years and check out Cursed Castilla EX. Is Locomelito's homage a proper love letter to the days of yore, or is this an ancient relic that should have remained lost to time?
Comics, games, animation, and a variety of henshin credible superhero shows from Japan. Chad Bonnet guides you through the Tsundoku Zone.
I really gotta say this, y'all don't all truly need the latest and greatest.
Cursed Castilla, also known as Maldita Castilla, was released in late 2012 on computers. A labor of love by indie developer Locomelito, the game features a soundtrack by Gryzor87. After some positive press, the title was eventually revised and ported to then modern consoles, with the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and Nintendo 3DS receiving the title in the past few years. While late to the game, the revised title, denoted by the EX, hit the Nintendo Switch a little over a year. The story is simple. As the knight Don Ramiro, you're out to stop the demons of hell from invading our world, traversing the land of Tolamera del Rey. Accompanied on your travails with partners, you'll tackle 8 stages, over a dozen bosses, and hordes of enemies with your trusty weapon, sub-weapon, and precious platforming skills. To clear out the softball opinions early on, both the graphics and soundtrack are solid representations of gaming in its arcade infancy. It's hard to espouse anything more than, this is what a game should look and sound like, so we'll leave it at that. While heavily rooted in the 1980s, the presentation has evolved. There are selectable screen filters if you particularly want to relive the CRT days, but achievements and unlockable information on the beast you defeat remind you what era you live in. All this is just set dressing. It doesn't matter if the game's not fun.
Am I in love with just falling apart? Could it be true, or am I in for some broken heart?
Locomelito gets what made the Capcom classics, well, classics. They were challenging little adventures, but if you were persistent, you'd be able to make your way through them. The developer also understands what made them aggravating. Initially developed for the arcades, there was a fair amount of pain induced to make sure you were regularly putting quarters in. Don Ramiro's jumping is a little more under control than Arthur's, thankfully. You can do a bit of course correction in the air, which makes things a bit more forgiving. None of the levels are substantially long, but the way the game handles checkpoints is very interesting and appreciated. There's no traditional checkpoint marker, but once you've transitioned from one segment of a level to another, you basically make a soft checkpoint. Lose a life from this point on, and you're not back to the beginning of the level, just this section. Don Ramiro can then just attempt this section over and over until he runs out of lives. With most stages being about 4 or 5 sections, you'll still need to beat many sections without a life lost, but it saves a lot of heartache versus the alternative, making your way to a boss and going back to the beginning of a level when you die. If anything, Cursed Castilla EX feels like the levels exist purely for you to get to the bosses, and they're all highlights. Each have their own tactics and skills, and none appear to be simply larger versions of the main characters you encounter. In comparison, the levels are fine. Fine remains a positive word, but I can't say they've not ended my journey for now. Some particularly platforming segments are just beyond my skill set at this time, and therefore, my adventure. It's been over a dozen years since Ultimate Ghosts and Goblins hit the PlayStation Portable. With that, the originator of the style of gameplay ended that run, but it's up to other valiant warriors to pick up the torch. Locomelito and Gryzor87 have done a wonderful job at recapturing the magic of the 1980s in this title. While making modern advancements when needed, this title is a lovely rewind to the adventures of a knight on a quest, just now with a bit of Spanish flair. If you're looking to save the realm from demons on your holy quest, you can't do better than Cursed Castilla EX. My name is Chad Bonnet, and I'll see you in the stack.